Welcome back to the College Cinephile. I'm Coleman.
And I'm Andrew, and today we're going to talk about White Boy Rick.
It's the true story of America's youngest FBI informant, drug kingpin, and hustler, directed by Yann Demange. So Andrew, what did you think of the movie?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really down-to-earth and really gripping story about a true life experience.
So you like the true story aspect? You like movies that are true stories?
I did. I really think that true stories in their own aspect have a more down-to-earth feel, and I think people can relate to those stories more.
So the plot of this one, right? This young kid, 14-year-old in high school, he's starting to sell drugs, starting to work for the FBI. What did you think of the plot?
I thought the plot was really interesting because mostly it really happened. So I thought, wow, this is really interesting that something like this happened to a kid, such a young age.
Yeah, I agree. The premise is really engaging. Right from the start, when we meet the characters, it starts at a gun show, and I'm just like immediately sucked in because this 14-year-old kid does not seem like that young at all. And that's kind of something the story plays on more and more, that the people around him don't really think that he's as young as it is, and that plays to his advantage. So one of the things that really stood out to me were the performances in the movie, is particularly the protagonist of the movie who played Ricky Wershi. He's a new actor. He has very little acting experience prior to this movie. He still did a really good job, especially when compared. He's acting alongside Matthew McConaughey, Academy Award-winning guy, lots of experience acting. I thought he did a phenomenal job.
Did you have any dislikes with the film?
So you liked the film. I didn't. I wasn't a huge fan of it, mostly because I think it had some structural problems. I think it didn't pace itself very well. So the movie is broken up into like 4 years, right? It starts in like 1984, and by the end it's in 1987, I think. And then the first 2 years, it's like half the movie, but it spends so much time establishing the plot lines and the themes that it's going to try to get to that I don't think the rest of the movie has enough time to capitalize on those. And then you combine that with the fact that each scene in the first half is really jarring and kind of short, and they just seem like random encounters that just kind of happen for some reason, but then don't really have any flow from one sequence to the next one. So I think the biggest symptom of that then is that the movie tries to balance a lot of different themes and like commentaries. Like one of the big ones is about America's like drug problem, and I know you had some thoughts on this. I didn't think the movie did as good a job as it could on having this like commentary about how the drug policy in America during the 80s was broken and like tore people apart. What did you think about it?
I agree with you on some of those aspects, like the plot, and I think the reason why it jumped around a lot is because it was a true story. So like when you make an actual fiction story, you get to fill in those gaps. But in real life, there's just there's like gaps where nothing really kind of happens. And for me, I think I was distracted by just like the scenery and the filmography.
Cinematography.
The cinematography. And I thought, just, like all the lights when they went to, the skating rink, they went there a lot, and I thought that was like a really, really good example of just getting different angles and getting different shots of just how people back in the 80s were. And I think it really did represent the 80s for what it was at the time.
I agree. One of the things I did really like, I've harped on it a bit, but one of the things I really did like was the family dynamic that they present. Specifically the relationship between like Matthew McConaughey and the younger actor. I thought every scene they were in together was automatically better. Like every time, both of them acted very well, but anytime they shared the screen and both were in a scene together, I felt like they acted so much better. Especially compared, like I said, a really young actor with no experience and then a very veteran actor. You couldn't tell at all that there was any discrepancy there. So I said earlier that the structure was part of the problem, but I do think the second half of the movie does better with some of the themes that they're trying to establish, specifically the family aspect. That's my one positive takeaway I think I have from it, that the family they present seems very real and tangible and wholesome, and the bad things that are happening to the family, really you can empathize with them for it. Like the daughter is a junkie, the son is getting really deep into the drug trade, the dad has his own issues, but then they all come together by the second half of the movie. That's the one thing that I would say was really rewarding about it.
Yeah, if anything, I think it really captured a broken family.
Yeah.
Right there in the middle of how everything just went to pieces for no reason.
Yeah.
Or for going through such hard times.
So we've talked about the true story, that it's a true story a lot. And you've said that you like when they're true stories. Do you, kind of on this subject, there are times, I think the story suffers a little bit because it tries to stick to the reality of what actually happened. So do you think it's sometimes okay for a director to take some creative liberties with what happened in the true story? Because I think the movie might have benefited a little bit if some of the sequencing was adjusted, because I think the film suffered because it stuck so rigidly to the kid's story. If some parts of it were maybe omitted or some things were added in, I think the movie could have benefited from it. What do you think?
Well, that's why they say at the beginning it says based on a true story. You know,
Right.
so they could add their own spin on it to make it more interesting. One thing that I thought of was, did those people actually talk that way? They sound very Detroitan. They sound like they're from Detroit. They look just like Detroit. They look the part for Detroit. I'm wondering if they were actually like that in real life, or
Yeah.
how did they view themselves?
The transformation was really good. I agree there.
So how many stars would you give it?
So, okay, final thought. I didn't like it, but it wasn't terrible. So I'd give it 2.5 to 3 stars.
2.5 to 3 stars?
What about you?
I would think I would give it about 3.5 stars.
All right, guys, thanks for watching another video. If you have any thoughts, disagree with us, agree with us, make sure you comment about it, and watch us again.